Welcome to the Run for God Run Club, where you will find God in a runner's space.
Welcome to the Run for God Run Club. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail, where you can, in turn, inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. Amen. I am your running host, and we have a Dean Thompson. You'd think after I do this
ahead of yourself,
as
Dean.
Many times as I've done this, you'd think I'd get it right. Well, we have a special treat for you today, and we're going to show you an interview that I had with Webb, the American record holder in the mile, while I was in South Dakota. We talk some running. We talk a lot of faith. And I think that he's got some good words for those of you who are out there who maybe you feel like you don't identify with that elite athlete. I think he's got some good words for you as well. So, and of course, joining me today for that and so much more is Run for God founder Mitchell Hollis.
Thanks for having me, Dean. So how was South Dakota?
It was, I couldn't live there. I could not do it.
A lot of snow.
These 10-foot mounds of snow at the corner of every parking lot.
Yeah.
Just would drive me crazy.
Yeah.
It's now looking out over the fields and everything is beautiful. And in the mornings when the ice was in the trees and all, just gorgeous.
So did it snow any while you were there, or was it just piled up?
It snowed a little bit while we were leaving.
Okay.
As we were leaving. Cool. So yeah. But listen, I'm not denigrating anybody who lives in those areas. That's awesome for you. Man, I like the South.
Yeah, we were talking about it the other day. You were talking about those big piles of snow. I said, you think somebody by now would have invented some kind of snow melt machine where it would just pipe that stuff right into the storm drains? And maybe we need to invent that, Dean.
Maybe so.
I don't know.
That might be the thing to do.
All right, well, let's talk about this week's sponsor. Again, if you want to become a sponsor of Run for God and you want us to kind of promote your business while at the same time you're promoting the ministry of Run for God, you can send an email to runlanehollis@gmail.com. But this week's sponsor is Outer Elements. Established in 2011, Outer Elements is a design-build landscape company servicing the Northwest Georgia and Chattanooga, Tennessee areas. Specializing in the latest techniques in landscape architecture and design, Outer Elements has the professional experience to develop a wide range of projects in both commercial and residential. From irrigation installation, hardscape construction, planning, and beyond, Outer Elements can help conceptualize any landscape project and make it a reality. Give them a call today at 678-445-1968 to connect with a passionate landscape architect. I'm actually having lunch with Blake tomorrow with Outer Elements, so thank you to them. Thank you to all of our sponsors. We're actually adding a few perks to our sponsors right now as we speak. We're actually going to be doing some full-blown commercials with them that we're going to be adding to this podcast, so maybe you'll be able to hear their voice and not just ours all the time. But thanks so much to all of our sponsors. We just can't do what we do without you.
Yeah. We're going to be changing some things in the podcast in the near future. We hope that if you're out there and you listen to this faithfully, we hope you don't notice a thing.
Or you notice it's better.
That's even better. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, do you realize that today it's 156 weeks of this podcast today, which is 3 years.
Wow.
So 3 years we've been at this. So thank you for those of you out there listening.
We started and the lockdown happened.
That's right.
So yeah, that's right. It's 3 years this weekend. Lane and Holly left this morning for Sarasota, Florida. Well, 3 years ago, Lane and I left for Sarasota for a big race that he has down there. And there was whispers of lockdowns. It's when this was 2020. And we got there and the race director assured us that the race was going to happen. This was on Thursday. Friday, everybody did the course preview. Saturday morning about 5 o'clock, everybody got an email saying the race is canceled. Everybody go home. The world has locked down.
That was so sad.
And it's just so surreal that we're sitting here 3 years removed from that, and it doesn't seem like that long.
I know it doesn't, does it? Yeah.
So crazy.
Well, one thing I'm going to talk about next week, I've written a Dean's Thoughts story about our trip home It's very interesting. I won't go into details, but let's just say airports. I have a little less faith in airports after airports and airlines after this, but not bad, not terrible, but it's a little bit amusing, too. Yeah. Well, we have a great Facebook post from this past week, or Run Club Social post, actually, from Pamela Bishop. And this is what she says. True Confessions of a Wallflower. Hi, everyone. Just wanted to say that I am still here. I have been slow to make the big commitment of signing up for a race because I guess a part of me still assumed I would fall into my old ways of thinking, perfection or quit. I can tell you for a fact that I have not been perfect with following the running plan. In fact, I have missed 2 scheduled runs so far, but I'm still here. I'm pretty sure that surprises me more than anyone else. It's time to take the leap. So I signed up for a local 5K and I ordered my Run for God t-shirt. But wearing the shirt intimidates me. What does it mean to run for God? I would much rather not wear the shirt at all than to misrepresent the love of God through my actions. But I'm a big girl and not afraid of doing hard things. Instead of giving up, I decided to get informed about what it really means to run for God. So what does it look like? If I'm running for my glory, I would wear arrogance and pride like a badge of honor. But Jesus said in Matthew 5:5-8, be humble and pure of heart. Running for myself would allow me to eat and drink anything I want because I deserve it. Running for God is hungering and thirsting for righteousness. That's Matthew 5:6. Running for myself would indulge my feelings about not performing well or not winning by allowing me to get angry. Running for God resists anger. Matthew 5:22. Running for myself gives me an out to quit training. Running for God means keeping my word and following through with the commitment I made to stick with the training and run the 5K. That's Matthew 5:37. Running for myself allows me to do the minimum amount of work. Running for God means going the extra mile. That's Matthew 5:41. Running for myself means seeing other runners as the enemy and using hate for them as a motivator. Running for God means loving my neighbor. That's Mark 12:31. The list goes on and on. Running for God means not being in judgment, showing mercy, being in prayer, practicing forgiveness. All this and sharing the gospel. I might not get these all right all the time, but running for God also means running with God. He will be faithful to forgive me for my mistakes and help me to learn from them. Just like running takes training to get better at it, so does righteousness. God doesn't need me to show the world His love, but He has blessed me with the opportunity to be part of the greatest love campaign ever seen on the running trail. Isn't that well done?
That's great, Pamela. Yeah, that's a new perspective on Run for God.
It is.
And it's I mean, that's just another example of how living the Bible is.
Yeah.
I've read Matthew 5 many times, but I've never put it in the context of Run for God, but it's dead on. So yeah, great job.
It's funny how, people ask me all the time, how do you come up with all these stories that you write for the Dean's Thoughts? Mm-hmm. And I tell folks it's not that hard. It's stuff that's around me, and here's a whole different perspective I've never written about, and there's thousands more out there.
Yeah,
so it's pretty cool. Yeah,
great job, Pamela.
Yeah. I like the way she starts it off. The way she starts off by saying, "I'm not normally. I strive for perfectionism, mm-hmm. but I realize in this endeavor that perfect is probably not a reasonable goal. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to forgive myself when I'm not perfect."
I think that's probably one of the biggest hurdles that people deal with in training. I know I struggle with it is, mm-hmm. We talked a few weeks ago about that workout that I just absolutely failed on. And the enemy, society, other people around us will just say, well, you messed up. You need to just throw in the towel. But that's not what God wants us to do. God wants us to practice that perseverance and endurance and pushing through hard things, because every time we push through hard things, we learn something new, and we learn to be better for it. And so, yeah, I mean, I applaud her because we all, in some way, we all strive to be perfect.
Yeah.
And but that's not realistic. The strive to be perfect, yeah, that's just, it sounds good, but it's not realistic.
Yeah. Well, and I thought about it
better.
Yeah, I thought about it from this perspective. A lot of times we use this phrase: anything worth doing is worth doing right. Mm-hmm. And we take that and we really pervert it, and we are basically saying, if I'm going to do it, it must be perfect.
Right.
Which is not what anything worth doing is worth doing right means.
Yeah,
but that's the way we look at it.
So many times we do it at the expense of sometimes others around us. You know, I'm that personality. I want things perfect. You know, my wife, you know, we did the whole Enneagram thing, and, you know, I don't know how much stock I put in all that stuff. But when my wife described me, it's dead on. She said, you know, I'm not picky, but my personality, and I think I'm a 1. I'm either a 9 or a 1. I don't remember which end of the spectrum. But, you know, it's not that I go looking for imperfections in things. It's like they jump out and attack me.
Yeah.
And when she read that, I was like, that is so right. Yeah. But that striving for perfection, while it sounds good, it can be miserable. It can be a miserable way to live. Now, we need to strive for perfection in our walk with Christ, but knowing that the grace of Christ is there. But so many times we'll, just like in running, we'll mess up, we'll stump our toe, and we just throw up our hands. And we say, I can't do it. And the cross says we can do it.
Yeah.
The cross says forgiveness is there, grace is there, mercy's there, but society will say you messed up, you need to quit.
Yeah.
And that's so wrong.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, good word for sure. I love this. I just love the post.
Yeah.
Overall, I just love the idea of, again, like you said, doing our best is what it really comes down to. Just doing our best, and that best is never going to be perfect.
Sure.
So. We had a trivia question for last week, and the trivia question asked this question: what is the fastest animal? Mm-hmm. So you mentioned you thought this might be a trick question.
I had it half right.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
But and I'll say this, I will accept 2 different answers for this.
Sure.
Because if you thought the fastest animal, meaning land animal, the fastest runner, since we're a running podcast, I will accept that. Of course, the cheetah is the fastest runner and can run over 70 miles per hour.
That's crazy.
Have you ever watched it? You ever watched like slow motion videos of cheetahs?
It's incredible.
It's fun to watch.
Yeah. I
love watching that. Yep.
And how they can get there just in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
It's like they're at full speed.
Yeah. But overall, the fastest animal in the world is actually the peregrine falcon. That when a peregrine falcon is diving, it can achieve speeds of up to 242 miles per hour.
How does it not kill it when it hits whatever it's diving for?
I don't know. I mean, I guess
does it slow up enough just when it's either hitting the water or hitting that animal or whatever it's diving for?
I would guess it has to. I
mean,
it would kill it otherwise. The 242, to put things in perspective, 242 miles per hour is 186 body lengths per second. And if you look at it from a human perspective, that would mean us being able to travel at 560 feet per second, which is almost 2 football fields in 1 second. That's just scary to even think about moving that fast, isn't it? But several others that I looked up. This was interesting. I was on the Wikipedia page for the fastest animal, and it talked about all these different categories of fast animals. Interestingly, the next fastest non-bird is a bat. I would never have guessed that a bat would be that fast, but the Mexican free-tailed bat can go about 100 miles per hour. And some people claim that this Mexican free-tailed bat actually can attain the highest horizontal speed. So the peregrine falcon attains that high speed diving, that this one can attain a really high speed flying horizontally.
So this, I'm going to expose my ignorance here, but is a bat not a bird?
It's a mammal. Bats are mammals. So
you can't be a mammal and a bird.
No, it's a whole different animal kingdom deal.
I didn't pay attention in the second grade, I don't guess. I would have swore a bat was a bird.
I think I'm right, but if I'm wrong,
somebody's going to tell us.
Somebody get me, but I'm pretty sure I'm right there. Yeah, and then in the water, the sailfish and then the swordfish are the fastest fish. Both can go 60 miles per hour or more, and that's incredible to think about moving through water at that speed, isn't it? But here's one thing that I didn't see coming. The second fastest running animal is the ostrich. And the ostrich can run 56 miles per hour. So the second fastest land animal is a bird.
So an ostrich is a bird.
I think an ostrich is a bird. I don't know.
It's a bird that runs fast.
Yeah. I think an
confused.
Ostrich is a flightless bird, I think. So I don't know. We're in
some interesting trivia there, though.
We're in way over our heads.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Humans have been clocked at 29 miles per hour. The 100-meter dash, world record for the 100-meter dash is 23 point something miles per hour average over that 100 meters. But what a lot of people don't know about the 100 meters is that the reason Usain Bolt was so good at the 100 meters is because Usain Bolt didn't slow down as much as everybody else does. So in the 100 meters, they get to top speed and then they slow down over the second half of the 100-meter dash. And he slowed down less than others.
Do you think some of that was because he was such a big guy? I mean, he got that train engine running, and I mean, he had momentum really, because he weighed a lot more than most 100-meter runners like that.
Yeah, I think that was part of it. I think he was able to get himself up to top speed as fast as,
because he didn't come off the blocks as fast as everybody.
Not quite.
He would always be a step behind everybody off the blocks, and then it's like
by 60 meters, he was
cruising by them and not slowing down.
That's right. Yeah. So I think that it's interesting. And here's another interesting thing about humans as it relates to speed is that what we're good at, better than almost anything else, is going long distances. So there's just a few dog breeds that can actually go further than we can, but everything else in the animal kingdom can't go as far as we can. Right. So our bodies are suited for going a long distance.
That's why messengers back in the ancient days were runners. It wasn't people going by horseback or any other kind of animal. They delivered messages through runners.
That's right.
Couriers on feet.
Right. Yep. All right. Well, I was able to sit down with Alan Webb while I was in South Dakota. We were at the NAIA Championships. Again, we talked about running a little. We talked about faith a lot. Alan is Catholic, and he discusses Catholicism a good bit in the video. And we're not necessarily endorsing. We're endorsing a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Sure.
Period. And so, but he has so much passion when he talks about all of this stuff. And he has this real deep, you can feel the yearning desire in him to give back to the running community, right, which, he benefited from a good bit when he was younger. And he just wants to give back. Alan Webb is still the American record holder in the mile run. He ran 3:46 and change for the mile. That was done in 2007, and he still holds it today.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it really is.
Now, contrast that with the world record. What is the world record right now?
The world record is 3:43.
Okay.
So it's 3 seconds off the world record. But that world record is old, too.
Yeah.
The world record was run around close to this same time.
Sure.
So he came out at the wrong time. Poor guy doesn't have an Olympic medal or anything. But if he was running the same times today he was running then, he'd probably been an Olympic champion.
Yeah.
So, but that's But he wants to give back to running. A lot of his story kind of parallels the Run for God story. You know, it's sort of like I've been doing this for myself. I've been pretty selfish my whole life, and I want to do something. And he's like, what does that look like? What does it look like to give my running back to God? And of course, for him, that picture was completely different than it was for you.
Sure.
But it's still an important picture. So I thought that was one of the best things about it. Now, let me say this about this. If you're watching this, the video is not great. The audio is great. And the reason for that,
you're doing what you do best.
The reason, if you're listening to this podcast or you watch this podcast, when there's video, Mitchell does a great job at video. Dean does not. But Dean does a good job at audio.
Right.
And so the audio is me, the video is you, and unfortunately, you weren't in South Dakota. And so it was a debacle. So, and then we had one of the cameras mess up on top of that. So, But you can hear every word.
Just close your eyes and imagine.
That's right. You can hear every word clearly. So we will get to this interview with Alan just after the break.
You know that moment when you're running and you settle into that perfect pace, and then the next song comes on? Don't let that happen again. With the new J Radio, you can trust us to make sure that the next song in your playlist will help you keep up that pace. Check out the Radioactive station on J Radio for all different genres of workout music handpicked for you while you run. Start listening now at jradio.com.
Okay, so I'm here with Alan Webb, American record holder in the mile, right? And a guy who he's coached with, you coached with Portland State to start with. You coached at Arkansas Little Rock.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
You're currently at Ave Maria University. You and I talked about how that, maybe we'll talk a little bit about how that got hooked up, because that's a pretty cool little story, that kind of divine thing. It's funny how God does that.
Yeah.
You ran at the University of Michigan, correct?
Correct.
And then had an amazing professional career where you did set the American record, and you just had a good time there. And then you worked in triathlon for a little while too, right?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit, not long, but just a little bit. So you've done a lot of different things. Anyway, you still have the high school mile record? Is that correct?
I do. I have that one.
That one's crazy. To me, the 346 is awesome. The 353 in high school seems to be just as good, if not better. I don't know. Which one do you think is better?
Oh, I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
I still think running 346 for me was still a little better. I tried. I meant to do it that day.
Okay.
Whereas in high school, I didn't think I'd be able to do that, and it was sort of more of a surprise, I would say.
Okay.
So setting the American record was more of like a goal that I had specifically set, and went out that day trying to do it that day, and it happened. So
that's pretty awesome when that happens.
It is. And
I can see why that would be a big deal. Yeah. Okay, so you're married.
Yes.
Married in what year?
In 2010.
2010. Okay, Julia is her name. You got 3 daughters, right? 4 daughters. Okay, 4 daughters. Wow. See, I can't do anything but boys. I've got boys. We got boys all over the place. You got girls all over the place.
Yes, I do.
You feel outnumbered?
I'm completely outnumbered. Outnumbered.
It's a good thing, though, a lot of times, right?
Yes, it is. I love them to pieces, and they... but they do kind of gang off of me, I think, a little bit sometimes.
That's fair.
And I think they're like getting better at it too. It's like it's not fading. They're getting more organized, I would say.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, what are their ages?
They're 10, 7, 4, and Bridget will be 2 in May.
Wow.
So
good heavens.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. My kids are grown. You know, obviously I'm an old man at this point, so my kids are having kids. Both of my boys have adopted little girls.
Oh, cool.
So,
see, now the balance in the force is
that's
happening.
Right. That's right. And hopefully your girls will have some boys and balance things out.
Yeah, we'll see.
Whatever it is, it'll be awesome. But most of all, through all the running and all of the success for running, you're a child of God. And I assume that's what you hang your hat on.
I try to.
Yeah.
I try to. And yes, you're right. I had some regrets in the past, but I hope to repent of them and really appreciate that gift more than any of the other.
So, what point what point did you find Christ? Was that early or late, or?
It was like a slow process. I mean, there was tipping points there, but you know, there was seeds there, you know, and you know, I grew up in various denominations growing up, and I was baptized as an infant in the Episcopal Church, and but it really wasn't in the center of my life,
right?
You know, it wasn't in the center, you know, and you know. Just didn't have the real conviction there, but like I said, I would say the seeds were there,
right.
And you know, I grew. You know, I was baptized in the Episcopal Church, and we, you know, during my childhood, we attended, you know, a multi-denomination church, which was Presbyterian, Methodist, United Church of Christ, the Disciples of Christ. But it really, it was leaving me wanting, and I met my wife in 2007, who was a cradle Catholic, and you know, I started going to mass with her, and you know, we were married in the Catholic Church, and it was just slowly over time attending the mass, and really just the Lord just chipping away at me and sort of like revealing to me some of the truths of the of the Catholic faith, and I couldn't really fully commit to things, to really being all in, so to speak. Just because there was the running thing was sort of this idol, the idol for me, and I can make a pretty strong argument that it is for a lot of people.
Yeah,
you know.
Sure. Well, I don't know if you know, that's how Run for God was founded. So Mitchell Hollis, the guy that founded Run for God, he founded Run for God because he got convicted. Actually, somebody confronted him and said, "Mitchell, make sure you don't let this become your God." Yeah. And he was very convicted of that, was mad at first, and then thought, you know, I need to back up. And that's how Run for God was founded, with the whole idea of what does it look like to take running and give it to God?
Yeah, exactly. So I really had not, I didn't do that. And for my whole career, it was, you know, the running was the number one thing. But you know, there was still sort of a yearning there. Right. And I could give you like a whole bunch of examples, but we don't have all day now. So I'm trying to go and fast forward here. But I you know, it was really learning about the faith and really learning that there is truth. Truth exists. Truth exists. Yeah. Truth exists, and and the existence of God is true. That's like a fact. And then from that, and then you can say, well, like, how do you define God? Well, what is, like, if God exists, that's awesome. So, but let's go deeper. It's deeper than that. And so, enter Christ. Is like, who is Jesus? Who is this person of Jesus? Is Jesus real? Is he a real? Is he real?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. He's real. He actually is real, and he is the Son of God. He's the second person of the Trinity. Yeah. And so, recognizing that, it's like you can either believe it or you can't. There's that sort of you're
making a choice one way or the other.
You're making that choice, and so it's the kerygma and the primary recognition of Christ as the Son of God. And he says, he said these things. He said, "I am the Son of," I am, yeah. And you either have to believe it or not. Yeah. You have a choice. Yeah. And so it sort of starts with the general idea of objective truth. Does truth exist, whether you believe it or not? Is this a table? Do you believe it's a table? Like, our belief doesn't change whether or not this is a table or not. That's right.
Great illustration.
And my belief that Christ is the Son of God was, that reality was there, whether I believe it or not. Mm-hmm. And then, then you're to the point where, like, well, okay, is Jesus who he says he is? And I got to that point. I was like, okay, yeah, it is. And then the third step was, well, then what do I do? And then what do I do about that? Mm-hmm. What do I do? And I mentioned that Julie and I got married, and she's and she was born and raised Catholic, and I had to. I felt like I had to be genuine for me to do what an adult would do to join the Catholic Church, which would be go through the RCIA. And I know I'm using talking about the Catholic faith, and I know that this podcast isn't specifically Catholic, but it's very important to me, because I couldn't be halfway. Right. And it had to be real. Mm-hmm. And then the next step in the process was, well, where do I go, and how do I sort of live the Christian life? Mm-hmm. And the reality of the church came in and said, well, is the church, the Catholic Church, is it what it is? Is it what it claims to be? And the Catholic claim is this, is that the Catholic Church is the church that Christ established. And I couldn't ignore that truth. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you could fast forward to my running career ended in 2014. I dabbled in the triathlon for a couple of years, and once that all the sort of athletic stuff was kind of stripped away from me, I had to fill it up with something. And at that point, I had sort of heard enough. There's lots of material out there that can explain those points better than I can. There was a few key people. I'd say Father Mike Schmitz was important. His way of explaining objective truth. Bishop Barron on who Christ is, and then Scott Hahn does a very good job of sort of explaining the validity of the church through that came about through history. And at that point, I was like, I have nowhere else to go except there, yeah. Except here into the church. I'd say in full communion with the church. Right. Like I said, I was baptized, and so when I came into the church, it wasn't as a catechumen. That term. So I was there partially, but just not fully. And I wanted to, and once I stripped all the running stuff away, I wanted to do what this podcast does, is like, sort of offer up my running in its own way to the Lord. And so yeah. I said, well, I did all right in running. I didn't win 1 million gold medals or set the world record, but I did okay for myself. You know, I ran pretty fast. Set the American record, which I currently hold. We'll see if that keeps up. You know, there's some people that are
they're working on it.
Nick Goose is getting mighty close, so we'll see how much longer that lasts. But by the grace of God, I did all right, and I certainly was blessed with, you know, the work ethic and kind of understanding, like, you know, put your work in and you get it out. So I wanted to like commit to it like 100% and kind of do the same thing for my own, at least my own personal spiritual life, as I did with running. Yeah. So I was like, I'm doing it. And I had heard enough of the truth to say this now I have to. There's no option. You know, if my goal, like, what's my goal? Well, in running, it was like, you know, I want to set the world record. And well, from a spiritual standpoint, there's really only two choices. Either you want to go to heaven or you want to go somewhere else. And somewhere else doesn't sound super fun. Yeah. I really don't want to go to hell. That's right. You know, like, those are the choices. It's super simple. Yep. It's really simple. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, you kind of went back and forth about like the oddly simplistic way running ends up being, you know, sometimes we make it more complicated than it really is. Right. But in the spiritual life, those are our choices. We have our time on earth, and if we, you know, to the best of our ability, live the Christian moral life, and sort of do what we're told, then we get to go to heaven, right? And that's what I wanted to do, right? And I committed. I joined the RCA. I went into the RCIA. I went through all that process, which really isn't as complicated as it sounds. And I'm like all in, and I wanted to keep going. I still pursued coaching, and as you know, my vocation, you know, like my job, after obviously being a father and a husband and father, and it through a roundabout way, it led me to pursue this job at Ave Maria, which is, you know, just an incredible school that really nurtures the Catholic faith and really sort of lives out what has proven to be difficult for Catholic universities to truly actually project the Catholic teachings of the Catholic Church, which I won't call out all the schools, but I know there's some of them that don't necessarily, that were founded with Catholic principles that aren't necessarily,
we're familiar
doing it, and we're not. Ave Maria is not perfect. It's not perfect. Definitely not a perfect place. However, from my experience, they're certainly trying, right, to truly live out what the Catholic universities were founded for, and even specifically the more recent Ex Corde Ecclesiae from Pope during Pope John Paul II's pontificate, you know, that papal document more deeply addressing what the Catholic university's goals are. And that's I heard about this effort, and I was like, and I said, that'd be really awesome to be part of that. If I could maybe somehow combine running and the mission of the church, that sounds super duper cool. You know, that's kind of like what I was thinking, you know, when I retired, you know, and got into it, wanted to kind of go to the next step. And again, by the grace of God, I got this position, and you know, here we are, you and I are sitting in this hotel. The NAIA indoor championships are started this. I think actually multis are starting right now, so it's starting right now. And both of us have a couple of awesome females that made it in the 800 and mile. That's right. So, you know, in our own little way, you know, it starts with a little seed, and we're just trying to dedicate our efforts to the Lord, in our own small way. And if nothing else, I think you did agree with me that the Lord knows, that He hears everything, and
That's
so
right.
if this is a pretty good way to kind of walk the walk or run the run.
Yeah,
would be a better way to say it. So,
well, and I think God knows our intentions, and He knows our heart, and I think He knows when you're in it for the reasons you just described. I think He blesses it, and I think when you're in His will and doing what He wants you to do, I think that's kind of what we're about, and what I try to do, what you try to do, and I think it makes a difference.
I think so too.
So you mentioned to me, I didn't know this until just a little while ago, and you and I were talking, that you started swimming. You were a swimmer before you were a runner, which I didn't know, but you were a swimmer before you were a runner. So what made you? How did you get into running after being a swimmer?
So the swimming started when I'd almost say before I can even remember I was doing it. I was swimming.
Yeah.
I don't remember learning how to do it. I remember doing some stroke technique, when I was like 4 or 5 years old. But
wow.
It was that young that I learned how to do it, and I eventually, I did summer, a small summer league team that was, this like sort of like a house league neighborhood team, for a few years from like age 6 till 10, 6 till 11. And then they started, or they expanded a bigger club, to have a location in my neighborhood at one of the neighborhood pools. And at that point is when I joined that club team, which then had me swimming year round.
Yeah.
And I recognized that, the kids that, set the records at the neighborhood team were the kids that did the club swimming, which was year round. So,
right.
Just put it simply, they practiced more.
Right. Which is incredibly important for swimming.
It's incredibly important for swimming. It's important for swimming, but really the big lesson is that it's important for anything.
Well, it's true. Yeah.
Any sport, really. Mm-hmm. Because, to bridge that gap, I slowly graduated from one group to the next, a higher level group. It's 3 days a week, 5 days a week. Eventually, I was in the group that was doing double swims, mm-hmm. When I was in middle school.
Wow!
And so I developed I was doing hidden cross training.
Right. Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
I was doing this sort of hidden running cross training because I'm 5'9", and occasionally I'm about 140. Occasionally. And so my body type made me a good swimmer, and I was okay at it. I wasn't bad, and I think I might have been. I think I could have been on a collegiate swim team. I don't know if I'd be winning a whole lot, but I think I could have hung in there.
Yeah.
At the college level.
But length means something in swimming.
It does. It means quite a bit. But it turns out in running, a guy who's about 5'9", 140 turns out to be pretty decent at the middle distances, right?
Yeah, that's right. Perfect.
So all that work ethic that I was essentially learned, the work ethic and the aerobic part, swimming, up until the beginning of high school, helped me to, I transitioned very quickly into running. I also played soccer and basketball, so I would say I was fast enough.
Yeah,
I was fast enough.
Yeah,
and if you should kind of look back at my career, that sort of sums it up. I was just fast enough to kind of hang in there with the big boys. I wasn't naturally super fast, but I was fast enough and aerobically strong, very aerobically strong enough to kind of piece it together with this like kind of ugly jigsaw duct tape puzzle that led to me running pretty fast in the mile.
And I get that, and your reputation is for somebody who just worked their tail off their whole time. I mean, that's the reputation. That's the thing that I hear. I don't know you. wasn't around for those workouts, but the workouts that I hear about are just legendary. The things that you did, it was really all about working hard. Now, just to be clear though, for Run for God folks that don't follow professional running very well, just everybody understand that we're talking about 3 seconds from the world record. Right. So we're not talking about just hanging in. We're talking about competing with the best runners in the world. I just want everybody to understand that. Okay. I understand your humbleness and I appreciate your humbleness, but 3 seconds from the best that's ever run the mile. So that's pretty good. So now you just turned 40, right?
Just turned 40.
So I asked you this question earlier. I'm going to ask you here. Any thoughts about doing masters running at any point, or are you kind of done with that real competitive time in your life?
To be honest, I am pretty done with my own personal running. You might see me jump in something here and there, but I certainly probably won't be genuinely like competing in the sense that I'll be like winning a lot of stuff. I said I sort of offered things, offered up my own running career. I also have other things that I have to spend my energy on,
right.
That I don't want to ignore. One is just family time, because it does take time, and I fully respect that.
Especially when you got 4 of them.
Especially when I have 4 of them. So I just can't commit to like really pouring it all into like my own personal running. However, I am going to try to make sure that I still do something just from like a general health standpoint. So I'm not like completely going to get away from it, from exercising for my own personal health, and actually for the health of people around me, because I'm definitely better if I exercise, because there have been periods where like I kind of like just fell off the horse a little bit and wasn't really like exercising like I should, and then I'm just crabby and just not.
I'm familiar with that.
Not functioning well. So because of that, you might see me jump in like a couple masters thing, but I might not be fully prepared for some of the demands. You mentioned the Masters 5K that just happened, and I couldn't help but go look at the results and see how well like somebody like Ben Bruce is doing, and gosh, like now I see some of my peers like doing it, and I'm sort of amazed by it. I'm like, how can you maintain that? It's so hard. I can't even. It's hard for me just to get out the door to run for 30 minutes. So, but yeah, so I'm committing my own running talents in like a different way,
For sure.
Number one, like trying to be there for my kids and my family first, but then also in my job too. Coaching sort of takes a lot of energy, and I'm sort of putting more into that. And if that means sacrificing some of my own sort of personal goals, then that's fine. That's okay. I think that at this point, that's really what the Lord has been kind of telling me what I should be doing with my time.
But you're going to stay fit, and that's what the Lord tells us to do, right?
Absolutely,
take care of our body.
Absolutely. And so, despite like having other commitments, I still believe it's important for really every human to be caring for their body,
right?
Because we're human beings, have 2 parts: we're body and soul, right? And so we've been entrusted with our body to show reverence to it, and so I hope we should all pray for each other that we can find that balance to have reverence for our bodies.
Yeah. Well, that's from a Run for God standpoint. That's what we're a lot about, is trying to get people. I mean, we shared a story last week of a 71-year-old lady who ran a marathon. First time she never run a 5K before. And being able to be part of that and see that, I'll give up a whole lot to hear more of those stories. And to know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I want to make sure too that I want to stay in good shape, and I want to take care of myself. And so, yeah, I get it. I know exactly what you're talking about. So, so let me follow through here you kind of covered all of the questions that I had right up front. And so,
oh no,
let me ask you this. Yeah. Something that I'm curious your thoughts about the Asbury University stuff.
Okay.
Recently, that whole this whole, I mean, it seems like there's something catching on. I don't know if that caught on at Ave Maria at all. I know it did at Lee University, which is right up the road from us. There were some things that happened kind of in conjunction with what was going on at Asbury. But any thoughts on what was going on there? You know what was going on there, I assume.
No, actually, no? I actually don't.
Okay, Asbury University.
Yeah.
They went in for they do Bible chapel it's a Christian university. They go in for Bible chapel every week on Wednesday. They went in on one Wednesday, and it never stopped. It went on for 2 weeks, 24 hours a day, because it was just spirit led, and people were coming up and they were sharing and they were singing, and it just became this thing over 2 weeks actually I think it turned into 3 weeks of 24 hours a day of them just praising God. And it was an amazing thing. And I feel like there's something in our world right now. I feel like we've gone to some really dark places recently in our world, and I feel like there's some folks out there like the Israelites who are starting to recognize that we've let it go too far, and we've got to bring this thing back. And I feel that. I don't know if you feel any of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's that need can only be fulfilled, like that sort of the need for meaning can only be filled. There's only one way to fill it up, and that's through Christ. Mm-hmm. And that story right there is a testament to that.
Yeah.
Because, like at certain points, so there's like sort of like a critical mass where this group of people start to, the Holy Spirit kind of comes down and sort of reveals himself. And then, then you can, the taste is palpable, and then you can, like this is a real thing. And, following that makes it easier to see and say, okay, this is, leading your life this way, or being filled up in the right way is really what will satisfy that.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And there's various different modes of sort of accomplishing that in terms of meditative prayer or reading scripture, at least I'd say outside of the mass, and then so it's great to hear that, because you're absolutely right. It is that's the only way we're going to fill it up. The fulfillment of all our desires. You can, and I would say that some people that are skeptics, I don't know if I'm suggesting this, but I would say that you can look throughout history and see what the unfortunate sort of experiment that you can look at to say when people don't fill it up with the right things, it never turns out well.
That's a fact. Yeah.
It never turns out well.
Yeah.
It never turns out well.
Yeah.
So you can try to do it your way, but it always turns out better if you just listen to the Lord and you follow His instructions. That's the best. It always ends well. It always ends well, even in the most extreme circumstances. Most notably, the Christian martyrs. Even when it appears temporarily like it didn't end well, those stories are actually most of the time the best ones.
Yeah, that's
like those instances where I mean, all of the apostles that were martyred, they all were except for John. They are in heaven. They got to go to heaven. So like, even though like for a brief period of time, they were really, really uncomfortable, they stood up for their faith, and they knew that the end goal, because what is the goal? We talk about, run for God, and what is the goal that would be just like a running goal? Well, the goal is to go to heaven. And so like, if you get there, then
yeah,
that's it, so let's all get there. And so like, and so you're right, it's a dark time. However, Christ is the light, and so he will light it up, and it's like this super light, and if you feel like you're in a dark time, you can look to Christ, and Christ will brighten everything.
Yep.
He'll brighten it all up.
Well, and you mentioned, you talk about the things that the apostles went through. You brought that up as an example. I would argue that if you want to look at actual historical evidence for why Christ is real, other than the feeling that you have and just knowing, look at the disciples and understand that these scared fishermen put their life on the line to say, no, it's true. No matter what you tell me, you can't tell me it's not. I know it's true, and you're not going to stop me from preaching about it. I mean, that fact alone is enough to me to say, if you have any doubt in your mind that Christ is real, to me, that's enough. That's it.
It is.
And so those guys who went through all those tough times, look what they've done for Christianity in general.
You're right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It's illogical for anybody. Then again, multiple people, in fact, to testify to the events that happened, and there's like more evidence that could fill this room that it happened.
Yep.
And it happened in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And when the people that defended that, somebody was like literally like torturing them in a really brutal way, until they died.
Yeah.
If that isn't enough to convince you, I don't know what, what you can. In fact, our entire legal system is set up in the same way to prove things that are either true or not true.
It's true.
There's 12 people on a jury,
Yeah.
Right.
And I
think even Judas knew it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this question. So, running in the Bible, lots of parallels, right? I mean, Paul talked about running a lot, right? Yep. So, of all the parallels between our faith and endurance sports, running, swimming, all of those things, do you have a favorite thing that kind of is your favorite parallel between faith and running? I'm putting you on the spot there.
Yeah, no. I think that probably I'd have to open up scripture so I don't mess it up, but I'll try my best to quote it. It would be there's Matthew 7. I think it's Matthew 7:13. It says, enter through the narrow gate, for broad is the path to destruction. Mm-hmm. Many are those that that's the first part. Enter through the narrow gate, right? For broad is the path to destruction. And I think that verse is one of many that, all scripture is inspired by God, and is useful for teaching. But that one always pops out to me in relationship to running and then sports, just because, you talked about, the work ethic that it takes to become good at something, and how difficult that can be. And that's how it is in sports.
That's right. Yeah.
Because it's a narrow gate. Mm-hmm. It's a narrow gate, and not everybody can handle going through that gate. And I think distance running specifically is it's very simple, but that part can be really hard for a lot of people. And we're at the national championship, so we sort of see a lot of people that can handle that. When you're at like a big meet, kind of everybody that's like a given. Like, oh yeah, that working hard. It's like most of the people at the highest level have that. Yeah. And to be at that level, you have to go through it. You have to put the work in, and sometimes it's hard.
It's hard just to make yourself just do it. Just do it. Just start it, even not let alone finish it. Right?
Correct.
Yeah. That's a good one. I hadn't really ever put those two together. So that's I like that. I like it a lot. So I'm not Catholic. I go to a Baptist church.
Okay. Yep.
But I have been listening to Father Mike Schmidt's Bible in a Year podcast. I listened to it this morning.
All right, he's awesome.
So I listen to it every day.
He's great.
We're 60 something days in. I haven't missed a day, and I'm really looking forward to the point where we get to what I call the 4 extra books of the Bible.
Okay. That's fair.
And I'm really looking forward to that, because I've never, I was actually baptized Catholic when I was young, when I was an infant, but I was kind of like you're talking about. I knew about the Catholic Church, and when I was a kid, we had it was a Nazarene church. And it was local, and they had this huge bus ministry, and me and my brother just kind of got on that bus and got involved, and that's what kind of brought me back to church when I was young. And I don't know, it just never got back to the Catholic
part, specifically that.
Yeah, but
he would do a better job of explaining the differences, and I told you that I grew up in a Protestant house, and so I'm not like, in no way am I like condemning all Protestant denominations, especially Baptists, because there's clearly like even now that I've been in the Catholic Church more, there's a lot of things that Protestant denominations actually do better in a lot of ways, or there's a lot of good that comes out of that in terms of like, just how to live out your someone's faith. Yeah. But I will still stand firm on what the teachings of the church are. And the Father Mike Schmitz would explain it well, explain it better, including how the full canon of Scripture, which really goes back to, those 4. It's really 7 books, I believe, from other. You can
shows how much I know.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really know that. I don't have it memorized. I'm pretty sure there's 7 from for example, the King James version of the Bible. Yeah. That does. See all the Catholics will be rolling their eyes saying I should know them all. It's I believe it's First and Second Maccabees are not there. Mm-hmm. Tobit and oh man, is it? I think Esther, or I think Esther's not.
No, Esther's in the.
Esther's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm
That's okay.
I'm butchering it. I'm butchering it.
I put you too much on the spot there.
Yeah. But I do know that the contention of the full canon of Scripture, that's what happened with the Protestant Reformation when Luther came along. That's really what the root of it was about, was that Luther wanted to take out those books from the canon, and the church stood firm on the canon and said, no, these are the books, and you can't change that. That part you can't. Those are and those are the parts that can't be changed. And part of like my learning about the Catholic Church is that not every there are only certain things that are like not changeable. Some of them have developed over time in terms of like not changing, but more fully explained, I would say. For example, like the creeds. I think a good example is the creeds, like the Apostles' Creed and the Nicene Creed. If you read them both, they are still identical to each other. They're just, one's like a longer version of it. And it kind of explains how the councils of the church happened, and what they actually did during them. And then Vatican II would be be another example. Like the Mass never changed. Yeah. Like the Novus Ordo is still the Mass. It really, it just evolved the vernacular of and actually I'm going to stop right there and try to explain that, because you got to let Father Mike Schmitz, you got to let him do it, because he's a priest and I don't really fully know what I'm talking about. I got to the point where I knew enough to be like, okay, I trust this. And then it helped me greatly. But I feel like I'm in a position now where I can relate to other Christian denominations, because I grew up in actually multiple ones, and so I sort of experienced that. And so,
well, I think you hit the bottom line a little while ago when you have Jesus Christ and you have to do something with him.
Yeah,
you have to believe that he is who he is and who he said he is, or not. And if you choose nothing, then you chose not.
You chose not.
And it's really what it comes down to. And do you have that relationship with Christ or not? Period. That's it. Yeah. After that, the rest of it, in my opinion, it's all window dressing. It's all just a matter of how we worship. And I'm convinced that when we get to heaven, heaven's not going to look like any of us think it's going to. I'm convinced of that. And I don't know if that means there'll be more people there than we think or less people there than we think, but I'm convinced that it's not going to be what we think. I mean, it's when you see Jesus's ministry, nothing was what any of the religious people thought it was going to be, right? Every time they turned a corner, he was busy pointing out something that was different than what the religious people of the day thought it was.
Yeah.
And so I just think when we get to heaven, we're going to get there and we're going to go, this is awesome.
Yeah.
But it's not what I thought it was going to be. It's way better. I think that's the way it's going to be. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but that's what I think. So
I think that's the most right thing you said all day, for sure, man. Yeah. Like, so many times they're like, oh, we thought it was going to happen. Even the apostle, they thought it was going to be like some like military campaign, maybe. I don't know what they were thinking. Who knows?
But they were way off.
They were way off.
Yeah.
They were way off.
Yeah.
But in the end, everything he said happened.
That's right.
And it just not in the way that we all thought it was going to happen.
Yes. Yeah.
Most especially, the passion and resurrection. And it all happened. And I think because God's got a sense of humor, a little bit. And he even in that dark moment during the crucifixion, they're like, bring yourself down from the cross. And he's up there and he just doesn't say anything, but he actually does it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
He comes down from the cross.
Yeah.
Not in like an ET phone home way, but he comes down from the cross.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he rises back up.
Yeah. That's awesome. Like, awesome way to put it. Well, let me finish with this. So we have a number of people in our Run for God Run Club, the majority of those folks are people who are running 5-hour marathons, 6-hour marathons. They're middle of the pack folks that they have families. They're just trying to do the best they can to keep themselves fit and do something hard, and hopefully maybe get to a finish line that's really, really hard for them. And it's, for some of them, it's just, can I even finish? It's not, can I finish well? It's just, can I get to the finish line?
Yeah.
And we've got some. We recently have a couch to marathon group that goes from not running at all to the marathon in 1 year. And so we just got through with one of those groups. We went to the Gulf Shores Big Beach Marathon.
Ooh.
And we had 2 on the podium there. And then we had a couple of folks in that, but then the majority of them were finishing later. So that's the kind of runners that we have. What would you say to encourage that? But here's the thing that I read this thing. It's called Hey Fat Girl. And the idea behind it is this person watching this other person who's not in great shape, but she's trying. And she's running around the outside edge of the track. She doesn't even want to step on the track because she doesn't deserve it, right? I'm not good enough for that. But this other person who is clearly a better athlete is looking at her and going, if you just pick your head up for a minute, what you'd realize is I'm in awe of what you're doing. That at some point in time in the near future, you're going to see that you're going to transform that body and you're going to be so awesome. And so the reverence that they have. And I'm the same way. I for a long time, I never paid any attention to the middle of the packer because I was nearly as fast, but I was at the front of the race, right? And so I dealt with those guys at the front of the race, didn't really think about the folks behind me. But now I have so much respect for those folks behind me because I realize when I get through, I ran that marathon in 2:51. We had people taking 8 hours to do that. Well, that's way harder. Than what I did.
Makes you run harder than you.
Yes, absolutely. It's way harder. So I say all that to say, what would you say to encourage those people?
I would just say keep going. Keep going. Because running is not a zero-sum game. It's the person who crosses the finish line isn't the only winner. You can still, like, the winning part is the internal personal journey where you get the best out of yourself. So for all those people listening that are running a 5-hour marathon or a 6-hour marathon or a 4-hour marathon or somewhere in the what you described as the middle of the pack or even the very back of the pack, you're still striving for the same thing that the people, the top 1%, which would include you, because you could go watch the YouTube video of the American record in the mile, but you can just take that American title off and then put personal right there, and that's just my personal record in the mile. It's the same thing. Yeah. Wow. And so every single person from front to back can have that. Have that personal record. Wow. And it even goes into if you take that lesson and you kind of appreciate that at whatever level you are, you can still expound that out for your whole life. For example, like you and I, maybe we were at the elite level at some point at the front of the pack. Well, I'm in my 40s now, and I can't do what I used to do. I can't run 3 minutes and 46 seconds. It's just not. I can't do it. Right. I can't do it. I can't run 100 meters at that pace. I say that because I've recently tried to even do a timed 100 stride, and I can't run it in 14.5. I can't do it. Oh, wow. I can't. It's like super hard. So, but can I still go out and like run and do the best that I can in my current circumstances, my age, my my marital and family status and in my job. Can I still go out there and do it? Yeah. And I said, you might see me pop in there, but I don't know if I can compete with you and Ben Bruce. So, but that doesn't mean that if I go out to the race and I'm trying really hard that and I don't cross the finish line first, that doesn't mean I've lost. Yeah. And so the encouragement that I want to tell that story to encourage everybody out there to keep going and to enjoy that, because your enjoyment from getting your personal record, probably brain chemistry wise, is probably the exact same thing that I experienced as an elite athlete.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. And that's a good way to put it. I like that. Good way to wrap it up. Well, Alan, I really appreciate you taking time to sit down with me and do this. And I'm so thankful for you and your life and how you're doing what you're doing for the reason that you're doing it. And we need a lot more of that. And there's others out there. It's not like there's a bunch of them.
We're not alone.
That's right. We are not alone. But I have a deep respect and appreciation for you and what you're doing. And I wish you all the best at Ave Maria, what you guys are doing and trying to build there. I know you're just getting started there, right? So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I know there's going to be big stuff coming out of South Florida here soon.
I hope so, and I hope to be competing in the true sense of the word against Dalton State. To we strive together. And and we can all make each other a little bit holier and maybe a little bit faster too along the way.
That's right.
Does that sound good?
Right. Amen. Amen. We'll leave it at that. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it,
Dean. Thanks.
Do you struggle with motivation to exercise? Are you looking for something that will challenge you and inspire and motivate you? The Run for God Run Club is just what you need to get off the couch and on your way to a fitter, healthier you. Stop trying to get into better shape and do it with the help and inspiration of thousands of others who are going through the same challenges you face. Whether you are participating in the Couch to Marathon Challenge or any of our other challenges, or you're just looking for a daily pick-me-up to get active, join the Run for God Run Club today. You can join for as little as 27 cents a day. So what are you waiting for? Get started today at runforgod.com.
All right, every week I share a reason why running and or walking is so awesome. And this week I want to share this. No matter how fast or how slow you are, we all have something in common. And I think that's one of the great things about running. We can talk about the sport and we can all understand very similar things. Now, running hard might feel different to me than it does to you, but it's not that different. Mm-hmm. It's really very, very similar. We can watch an event in the Olympics and we can feel like we kind of know what's going on there, right? And I think that's cool. And you heard the end of the interview. Alan had some really good advice for the average run club member. Well, why can he do that? Well, because we're all runners and or walkers, and we can all relate to each other. And I think that's one of the cool things about our sport. We get to run in the same races as the professionals. Mm-hmm. Like right off the same starting line. Mm-hmm. And it's you don't do that. You can't play football with Tom Brady. It just won't work.
Nor should you.
That's right. Yeah, that's probably a bad idea. All right. So what did you think of of Alan's interview?
I thought it was great. He's definitely he's got a lot of knowledge in that head. And he's very passionate.
Yeah.
I don't know what you have what you think of somebody before you meet him. But I didn't actually meet him, but before I listened to him, I guess I had these thoughts in my head about what he would be like. 100% different. Even the sound of his voice. You know how sometimes you have the sound of somebody's voice in your head. The sound of his voice was completely different. So it was a shock to me.
Yeah.
But it was a good shock. He's a great guy, and Alan, if you're out there listening, thanks so much for doing that. It really means a lot to us, to this ministry. I mean, I'll go ahead and throw Dean under the bus. The whole week before, he was like a kid waiting on Christmas Day to do this interview. So thanks for all you do for not only the running community, but for the the cause of Christ as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I love the most about him is he is very, very clearly, from the moment I met him the first time, he's very clearly focused on being in God's will.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome to have somebody with a voice. People listen to him, you know, and it's great to have somebody with that kind of voice. It was interesting because I hung out with him a little bit, sat next to him during track meet and stuff. And, people just, they stream by, and every 5 minutes somebody comes by and wants to take a picture with him.
Yeah.
And, that's he's so gracious about it. He doesn't make a big deal out of it. He doesn't go, oh no. He just gets up and says sure, and he's just really, really kind about it, and that's part of him giving back to the running community.
It's great to see people at the top of their game, or who have been at the top of their game, with a humble spirit like that. That's it's great to see.
Yeah. I was really, and you're right. I was really excited to do it, and the whole idea of just hanging out was fun. And I'm going to share a story next week about patience.
Or lack thereof.
Actually, I did really well. I will say.
It sounds like you did.
I did really well. So I surprised myself in a couple of areas, actually. But I will, all this equipment I took with me to do the video.
Some of it didn't make it back.
Some of it. Some of it got damaged. The bag that we're carrying it in got stuck in the X-ray machine on the way out. I spent 30 minutes in the security check on the way through.
What is it that we always say? If you pray for patience, God isn't going to give you patience. He's going to give you the opportunity to practice patience.
And He did.
And he did.
And He did.
Sounds like you passed the test.
Yeah. Well, part of the problem was a lack of patience in the fact that the video didn't turn out well, because here I am. We're in this room, and I've got, to my way of thinking, a celebrity in the room waiting for me to set all this stuff up. And I'm in a hurry because I don't want to waste his time.
Yeah.
Right. And so anyway, that's part of the problem, is I was in too big of a hurry instead of getting it right. So that's just me. It was kind of a comedy, actually.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we got to see while we were there, and it was fun texting back and forth with. I wasn't sitting with Alan during the whole day, that last day of the track meet, but we were texting back and forth, and we were watching a lady by the name of Addy Wiley. Mm-hmm. So Addy Wiley runs for a school called Huntington, which is in Indiana. And Addy is a very talented runner. So she happened to be running in the same event as my runner was running in, the mile run. Well, Addy ran, first of all, she had to qualify for every event. So she had to run 5 different events to qualify for 5 different finals that she had to run on the same day. So on Saturday, she ran 5 different races in one day. All of these races were an hour or less apart. Okay. So she runs the mile and wins it. She runs 4:47 for the mile. She comes back less than an hour later, wins the 600 in 1:29. And then she wins the 800 in, I think, 2:09, 2:10, something like that. And then she comes back and she wins the 3,000 and blows everybody away in the 3,000, and then finishes it off by anchoring her team in the distance medley relay. The distance medley relay has 4 legs that run a different distance. The last leg is a mile, and she ran the mile leg and ran 4:43 after all of that other stuff.
What was the first mile she did?
4:47. She was just winning fast. She was running fast enough to win.
Wow.
And she won all 5 events.
Wow.
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Of course, in high school, you're not even allowed to run that many events. But in college, of course, you can run as many as you want. And she did. And I was thoroughly impressed.
Yeah.
So she got pushed, I guess, the hardest on the shorter stuff. She looked around her in the 800, and as she was coming down the last straightaway, they were closer to her than she was comfortable with. And all of a sudden, you could see her look over her shoulder, and she saw somebody, and she dug down. And anyway, it was amazing to watch. So Addy Wiley, that's a name you're going to hear in the future, I believe. So pretty exciting. And I read this thing from Kara Goucher. Everybody knows who Kara Goucher is if you're into running. the professional running scene at all, but she does a lot of commentary and stuff too. She doesn't let her 12-year-old son run in super shoes. I thought that was interesting. But then I thought about that, and I thought about, well, why would that be? And then I thought, well, super shoes kind of helps you. Mm-hmm. And maybe her idea is she doesn't, maybe it's she's afraid it's going to lead to weakness. I never thought about that before, but a lot of people train in the super shoes now, and it really allows you to work less hard. And I wonder if that's going to lead to...
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, train heavy, run light,
Yeah.
Because I never have understood why people... I mean, I know that there's some science there that shows that it doesn't fatigue you as much, but that's part of training is the fatigue recovery.
Yeah.
And I never have understood why people train in them.
Yeah.
I get it why people race in them.
Yeah.
But it's like, Lane on his bike, he trains 95% of the time on heavy wheels on his bike, but come race day, he changes them out to light aero wheels, but those are for races only. So I guess I get it. So does she let him wear them in races?
I don't think she lets him wear them at all. Yeah. So
maybe because the stakes at 12 years old, maybe she wants that contrast later on when. Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway. All right. How about a trivia question for this week? So Alan ran 3:46 for the mile in 2007. It is still the American record. So here's what I want you to do. I'm going to ask you to do math. How fast is that per 100 meters? And then what I want you to do, after you calculate that and you figure out how fast that is for each 100 meters, go out and try to run 100 meters at that pace and see if you can do it. Because it's way faster than you think it is.
I don't know if I could.
Yeah. I don't know that I can.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. I think I could, but it would be
if I'm doing the right
challenge.
math, that would be hard.
That
would be very hard.
It's a challenge for sure. And if you know the answer to that, again, how fast is that? The 3:46 mile, how fast is that per 100 meters? Send that to dean@runforgod.com. Be the first one to answer, and you will win a discount in the Run for God store, almost like cash, and that's awesome. Well, all right. Let me leave you with this motivational thought of the week. It comes from Mahatma Gandhi. And it's this: strength does not come from physical capacity. It comes from an indomitable will. That's pretty good, isn't it? And it doesn't matter how fast or how slow you are. It's about doing it. It's about getting it done. So, very cool. Well, all right. We're at the end of another one. This one, Alan took center stage on this one, and I hope everybody out there enjoyed that. And don't forget about the Run Club weekend coming up in April. It's right around the corner.
April 14th through 16th.
Yep.
Come to Dalton and join us. We got a good crowd coming.
Absolutely. And until next week, may God bless every step of every run. Go out there and shine your light.
Good job, Dean.
For more information about the Run for God ministry, go to runforgod.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There's nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.